The great hall of Varnak Prime was filled with light, music, and proud alien nobles dressed in golden robes. They raised crystal glasses and laughed, their voices echoing across the walls like thunder. At the center, sitting on his high throne, was King Thavor, ruler of the Varnak Empire. His long horns were polished, his cloak heavy with metals, and his eyes full of cruel pride. He stood up, lifted his glass, and shouted, "To my beautiful daughter, wanted, unchosen, and above all, barren." The nobles laughed again. In the corner of the room, Princess Lysera stood silent. Her eyes were downcast, her hands folded in front of her. She wore silver chains as decoration, though everyone knew they were a symbol of her failure as a royal daughter. She had been tested again and again, no life signs inside, no cycles, no heirs. The healers had given up. Even her father had stopped, calling her by name. Now she was just the barren one. Suddenly, a quiet voice cut through the laughter. "I'll take her." The hall fell silent. Every noble turned toward the voice. At the entrance stood a tall human male in a simple black coat. His name was Commander Yolan Reese, a war veteran from the Terran front. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard-like. Steel. King Thavor squinted. "What did you say, human?" "Seta, I'll take your daughter," Yolan repeated. "If no one else wants her, I'll marry her." There was a pause. Then the king threw his head back and laughed even louder than before. "You hear that?" Thavor shouted to the crowd. "A human wants my useless daughter. What a match, one species without honor, and one without function." The nobles roared with laughter again, but Yolan didn't flinch. He simply walked toward the center of the hall, stood before the throne, and looked at Lysera. "I don't care what they say," he said softly. "You don't deserve to be laughed at like this." Lysera raised her head, shocked. No one had spoken to her kindly in years. Her eyes locked with his, and for a second, everything around them faded. Then she looked down again, unsure if this was a trick. King Thavor rolled his eyes. "Very well, human. You want her? Take her. But don't come crying when she fails you like she failed me." "I don't plan to use her," Yolan said, "only to care for her." A few nobles stopped laughing later that night, under the twin moons of Varnak Prime. The princess was brought to the human ship. No music, no crowd. Just her and him walking together in silence. She didn't speak, and he didn't force her. He gave her a blanket when she shivered. He carried her bags. Without a word, as the ship lifted off, Lysera stared out the window at her father's palace, fading in the clouds. She didn't feel sadness. She felt relief. For the first time in her life, she was leaving as someone's choice, not as someone's shame. Back in the royal palace, one noble whispered to another, "Why would a human want a barren alien girl?" The other replied, "Who knows? Maybe humans are just different." King Thavor simply sat in his throne, sipping wine, pretending it didn't bother him. But it did, because something about that human's calm voice stayed in his mind, and something deep inside told him, this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. The ship flew quietly through the black of space. Inside, Princess Lysera sat on the edge of a small bed, staring at the floor. Her hands rested on her knees, cold and still. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She simply waited. She was used to waiting for orders, for punishment, for someone to say what she was worth. But this time, no one said anything. Commander Yolan Reese sat across from her in the tiny living quarters of his freighter. The ship was nothing like her father's palace. No golden walls, no glowing crystals, no robotic servants. Just soft lights, clean metal, and silence. After some time, Yolan stood and opened a cabinet. He pulled out a wrapped ration bar and a steaming mug. "You should eat," he said gently. Lysera didn't move. She stared at him, unsure. "I'm not here to control you," he said. "This isn't a prison. And you're not a burden." Lysera slowly reached out, her fingers brushing the warm mug. It smelled like something sweet cocoa, he called it. She had never tasted chocolate before. She sipped it carefully. Warm, strange, comforting. Later, Yalan showed her around the ship. It was small 2 bedrooms, a cockpit, a kitchen the size of a closet. But it was clean and quiet. He pointed to one room and said, "That's yours. You can change anything you want." She blinked. "I have my own room." He nodded. Of course." Lysera stepped inside. The bed had soft covers and the walls had shelves for books. On the desk, someone had left a small metal flower. It wasn't real. A tea, but it was delicate, handmade. Perhaps even by him. She touched it, her chest ached. In the following days, Yolan didn't ask questions. He didn't try to touch her. He didn't demand answers or favors. He only offered meals, gave her space, and occasionally said simple things like, "Good morning," or "Sleep well." To Lysera, this was more confusing than cruelty. She had been treated like an object, given away in a joke. But now, she felt like a person. One night, as the ship floated in orbit above a moon, Lysera stepped into the cockpit. Yolan sat in the pilot's chair, watching the stars. He didn't turn, but he knew she was there. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Regret what?" he replied. "Taking me." Yalan shook his head slowly. "No, nothing to give you." She whispered, "I cannot give you heirs. I'm not beautiful to your kind. I carry shame. I am broken." He turned to look at her. His eyes were calm, but serious. "Maybe you've never been given a chance to be anything else." She froze. Those words hit something deep inside her. A place that had never been touched. "I didn't take you for what you could give me," he continued. "I took you because no one else saw your worth. I wanted to." Lysera lowered her head. "No one's ever said that to me," Colin said with a small smile. "Then it's about time someone did." That night, in her room, Lysera touched the blanket he gave her, drank the warm drink, and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in her life, she dreamed. And in her dream, she was not barren. She was not worthless. She was simply loved. Lysera woke up to the smell of something soft, fresh bread, maybe. A scent she didn't know, yet somehow found comforting. She sat up slowly in the small bed, the warm blanket still wrapped around her. The room wasn't royal, but it was safe. It didn't shine with gold, but it didn't threaten her either. She looked around and realized something odd. For the first time in her life, she hadn't dreamed of chains. Instead, she dreamed of being held. Outside in the small kitchen, Commander Yalan Reese stood near a basic heating plate, trying to make breakfast. He wasn't a chef, and the toast was a little burnt. But when Lysera stepped in, still wearing the oversized shirt he had given her, he turned with a gentle smile. "Morning," he said, handing her a warm plate. She blinked at the food, unsure. "You cook?" "Trying to," he said, with a soft laugh. "Not very good at it." She sat quietly and took a bite. It was chewy, a bit dry, but warm. Her body, starved of care for years, reacted more than she expected. Her eyes stung. She blinked it away quickly. "I could learn," she said quietly. Jale looked up. "Learn what?" "To cook," she whispered. "If I have a place here, you do," he said instantly. "You always did." Over the next few weeks, something strange happened. Lysera started to smile. Not wide, not bold, but real. She found herself humming while folding blankets, asking questions about the stars outside the windows, peeking over Jalan's shoulder. When he worked on ship repairs, he taught her how to check fuel levels, how to speak into the com, how to scan nearby trade ships. She was curious. She was smart, and he treated every moment with patience, never once laughing at her questions. But something even deeper began to stir. One day, while repairing a panel, Lysera slipped and hit her knee. She hissed in pain, trying to hide it. Jlen came running and knelt beside her. "Let me see." She panicked. "No, I'm fine. You're bleeding." "I said I'm fine," she snapped, but her voice was shaking. He stopped, didn't force her. "Okay," he said gently. "But if you change your mind, I have healing gel in the medbay." She looked away, ashamed. When men came close before, it wasn't to help. Jalen's voice became soft. "I'm not them." Lysera looked at him carefully. Then slowly, she reached out and placed her hand on top of his. Just that. And her body shivered. Not from fear, from something else. Something warm. That night, she stood in front of the mirror. She touched her own face. Her cheeks had color. Her hair looked softer. Her eyes still alien. Still Violet held something new. Hope. She touched her belly. Gently, she wasn't supposed to ever feel anything there. But lately, it felt warm. Inside, alive, impossible. Later, while Yolen cleaned tools in the storage bay, Lysera walked in barefoot, quiet. He turned. "Needs something." She walked closer, hesitated, then reached out, and placed her hand over his heart. "I don't understand," she said, voice trembling. "What did you do to me?" Yolan was still. "Nothing. You didn't inject me. You didn't force me. But I feel," she swallowed. "I feel alive. My body feels like it's waking up from a long, cold sleep." Yolan reached out carefully, so slowly, and placed his hand over hers. "You're not broken, Lysera," he said. "You were just frozen by pain. Sometimes all a soul needs is warmth." Neither of them noticed the small scan light blinking. In the corner of the room, it had picked up something strange inside Lysera. Something new, something growing. The ship floated in orbit above a quiet planet green with deep forests and peaceful lakes. It was a routine stop. Nothing unusual, but inside the ship, something had begun. Lysera sat alone, curled on the sofa, staring at her own hand. It trembled. Her body didn't feel normal. Her heartbeat wasn't steady. Her stomach twisted in strange ways. At first, she thought it was illness, but it never became worse. Only stranger and warmer. Jalen noticed she slept longer. She moved slower. She touched her stomach when she thought no one was watching. One night, he brought her warm soup. She didn't eat. Instead, she whispered, "Can we scan me?" He paused. "Of course." In the medbay, she lay back as the scan light passed over her. She closed her eyes. Yolen watched the screen. Then everything stopped. The system blinked, froze. Then slowly, data lines moved across the screen. He stared, double-dash checked. His mouth fell open. Lysera sat up. "What? What is it?" He looked at her. "You're pregnant." Lysera stared at him as if he had spoken another language. "That's not possible," she said. "I'm Barren." "I don't think you are. But all the healers I know." But they were wrong. Her hands moved to her stomach. She didn't feel anything. Not really, but now her body made sense. The warmth, the softness, the new feelings, life inside her. Yolen stepped closer. "This is real." Lysera's lips trembled. Then he lied. "Who?" "My father, the king, all my life." He said, "I was broken, that no child would ever grow inside me. But maybe," her voice cracked, "maybe he just didn't wait long. Enough to love me right." Yolen didn't speak. He simply stepped forward and placed his hand gently over hers, on her stomach. A soft light blinked under the scanner. A heartbeat, and Lysera began to cry. News traveled fast. The medbay systems were connected to old Varnock registry codes. Somewhere on the planet below, a beacon pinged back to a hidden satellite. A royal healer named Tovik received a signal. He blinked at the screen and rubbed his eyes. Impossible. He scanned it again. A royal daughter. Blood signature, Lysera. Reproductive status, active, gestating. Hybrid confirmed. He gasped and fell from his chair. She's pregnant. The message didn't stay secret. Within a day, whispers moved like smoke through the noble houses. She's alive. She's with child, a human child. Not just human, said one court whisper, royal. That baby may have a claim to the throne. Panic stirred behind closed palace doors. Back on the ship, Lysera stood in front of the mirror again, but this time not afraid. Her hand rested over her growing warmth. Her back was straighter. Her eyes held light. When Yalan entered the room, turned to him, "Do you regret it?" He smiled. "No. This is the most right anything's ever felt." Lysera stepped forward, touching his chest. "Then we protect this child." Together, Yalan nodded once. "Even if the entire galaxy comes for us." But neither of them knew. That the king already knew. That ships had already launched. And that, the very moment the child took its first breath, a war might begin. The throne room of the Varnock Empire had never been so quiet. For once, there was no music, no laughter, no clinking of goblets. Only whispers, nervous ones. And the one who spoke loudest was the healer. Healer Tovik, pale and sweating, knelt before King Thaver. His hands trembled as he held out a data crystal. "She is with child," Tovik said, voice thin. "The scanners confirm it, no error. Her womb is active. Life readings are steady. She carries a hybrid heir." King Thaver's golden goblet fell from his hand, shattering on the stone floor. "What did you say?" Tovik didn't lift his head. "Your daughter, Lysera. The one declared Barren. She lives. She carries a human's child." The king stood slowly. "This is a trick, a fake signal." "No, my lord," Tovik whispered. "The heartbeat matches your bloodline. I would stake my life on it." "You may have to," the king growled. In the shadows of the palace, nobles argued in panic. This could ruin everything. A child of mixed blood. Or save us. Think about it. A child of two powers. An heir like no other. One whispered, "If the people find out, they may favor her." Another hissed, "We must get the child. Now." Back on the human ship, Lysera stood by the viewport, staring. At the stars. Jalen watched her from the table, quietly repairing a tool. "Something's coming," she whispered. He nodded. "I feel it too." That evening, the ship received a message. "Royal seal. Urgent. Return to Varnock. King Thaver commands your presence. The child must be tested." The Union reviewed. Jalen raised an eyebrow. Reviewed. "As if we're some deal." "Gone wrong?" Lysera's voice was calm. "He will try to take the child. Then we don't go." She turned to him. "If we run, they will send warships. They'll mark our child a traitor. A mistake. I will not have our baby hunted." Yalan stood, jaw tight. "Then we go. But not to kneel." Lysera smiled faintly. "No, we go. To show them what love has made." When their ship landed in the royal courtyard, silence fell once again. Crowds had gathered, nobles in masks, soldiers in black armor. And at the top of the stairs, the king himself waited. Lysera walked down the ramp first. Her head high, belly softly round beneath her gown. Gasps echoed. Behind her, walked Yalen, slow and steady. A Terran in royal space. Unarmed, yet dangerous. The king stepped forward, face stone cold. You dare return with that thing growing in you. Lysera didn't flinch. This thing is your blood, your legacy. I called you Barren, he said. I called you shamed. And now, you shame me again. Yalen spoke, firm. Then tell your people the truth. You were wrong. The king's eyes narrowed. I could take that child. Try, Yalen said calmly, but you'll lose more than your pride. Guards stepped forward, but the crowd behind them murmured. She speaks like a queen, one woman said. She glows, whispered another. Look at her, she's alive now. Child inside her, made from two worlds. A bond stronger than thrones or bloodlines. The nobles looked and saw not shame, but hope, and high in the air above from a hidden station. A war general watching the scene turned to his crew and said quietly, things are changing. The kingdom will never be the same again. The golden gates of the Varnock royal palace creaked open for the first time in years to Princess Lysera. Last time she passed through them, she was silent, shamed, and unwanted. Now she walked with purpose. At her side was Commander Yolan Reese, hand steady on her back. Inside her, the child of two species, growing stronger every day. The guards stared but did not block her. Not anymore. Inside, the royal court had gathered. The nobles lined the walls, in their shimmering robes, whispering behind fans and collars. Some bowed slightly, others scoffed, and at the center, beneath the massive symbol of the royal crest, stood King Thavor. His expression was unreadable. Lysera stepped forward and spoke first. I did not return to beg, she said. I returned to declare. A ripple moved through the court. The king raised a brow. Declare, she nodded. This child is of my blood and his. I return not to ask for your blessing, but to warn you. You've threatened this life, you've threatened the unity of two powerful peoples. The room fell silent. Jalen added, calm and slow, and you may find humanity less forgiving than you think. The king's fingers twitched. He hadn't expected this. He thought his daughter would come crawling, weeping, pleading for a name, a place, a scrap of acceptance. Instead, she stood taller than he remembered. Her voice was stronger. She looked regal. You're no queen, he said, bitterly. You're a mistake. A lie. Lysera smiled softly. Then how strange that your mistake now carries the most powerful heir your bloodline has ever known. The nobles stirred. Whispers grew louder. A few younger lords looked at her with something strange in their eyes, not pity. Respect. Let us test the child. One noble said, double quotes, yes. Let the court see proof, said another. King Thavor's jaw tightened. You want to parade this thing for all to see? It already shines brighter than your pride, said a voice from the back. Everyone turned. Queen Mother Varana Thavor's mother stepped forward. Frail but fierce. She walked directly to Lysera and touched her cheek. I always knew you weren't barren, she whispered. You were just unloved. Then she turned to Thavor. You treated her like dust. But look, she returned as fire. The king's face turned red with fury. Enough. He slammed his staff into the floor. This is madness. A human child will not rule Varnock. Yolan stepped forward. Then you'd best kill us now, 'cause we're not leaving this time. The entire court gasped, but Lysera raised a hand. No, Yalen, he won't kill us because he knows deep down he is already lost. She looked directly at her father. This child isn't a threat to your legacy. He is your legacy. The silence after her words was long. finally. The king turned and walked slowly to his throne. He sat, exhaled, and said nothing. Because what could he say? He had mocked her, sold her, tossed her away, but she returned not with revenge, nor with rage. She returned with a family, with a future, with power that did not need permission. Outside the palace, people began to gather. The news had spread like fire. The Barren princess carries an heir. The human stands beside her. The royal bloodline lives. And in the crowd, aliens of many houses began to chant softly. Long live the child. Storms rolled across the skies of Varnak Prime, but the people didn't hide. They gathered outside the palace nobles, workers, aliens of every house watching the high windows where light still flickered through the curtains. All eyes were on the royal wing, where whispers of labor had begun. Inside, the chamber was filled with quiet tension. Jalen Reese paced near the bed, worry in every breath. Beside him, Queen Mother Varana calmly prepared herbs in a steaming bowl. The royal midwife wiped sweat from Lysera's brow. She's strong, Varana said gently. Stronger than anyone ever knew. Lysera cried out, gripping the sheets. She wasn't afraid. Not anymore. She had already walked through fire. Now she would bring life from it. Outside, the king stood on his balcony alone. He watched the storm and remembered the day he gave his daughter away like junk. He'd laughed, mocked, banished. But now the people cheered her name. Lysera. 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 He gripped the rail tightly. Would this child replace him or redeem him? Then it came, a cry, sharp, pure. The sound of a newborn's first breath. Inside, Yalin stepped forward, eyes wide. In the midwife's arms was a tiny, child human in shape, but glowing softly, like starlight rested beneath his skin. Lysera wept, not from pain, from relief. From joy, the child was healthy, whole, real, and his heartbeat was strong. He looks like you, she whispered. Jalen kissed her forehead. He has your strength. The midwife bowed deeply. A royal heir, born of two worlds. Varana nodded. A bridge between species, between futures. The next day, the palace gates opened. Lysera walked onto the balcony, holding the child in her arms. Yalun stood beside her, proud but silent. The storm had cleared. The sky was golden. Below them, thousands gathered eyes wide, breaths held. The Queen Mother stepped forward and raised her voice. Let it be known. A child is born of House Varnak and of Earth. He carries blood not only of royalty, but of peace. His name shall be Kalan Reese Varnak. The people roared. Nobles bowed. Even soldiers dropped their weapons and knelt. Then, something no one expected happened. King Thavar appeared. He walked slowly to the edge of the balcony. The crowd hushed. He looked at Lysera, then at the child. He said nothing. Instead, he bowed his head to her, and when he looked up, his voice cracked. Forgive an old fool who saw only weakness and missed the miracle before him. Lysera stepped forward, holding the child out slightly. Then hold your grandson, she whispered. Thavor reached out with shaking hands when he held the baby. He wept. The child's hand grabbed his finger tightly, and for the first time in decades, the king smiled. From that day on, the stars began to shift. Treaties were signed. Enemies became allies, and legends were born. Not of war, not of conquest, but of a human who saw value in what others threw away, and of an unworthy alien girl who became the mother of unity.